Some disappearances don't just haunt families, they haunt entire communities for generations. Some cases force you to keep asking the same heartbreaking question. How does a tiny 4-year-old simply vanish in the middle of a bright afternoon at a crowded roadside stop in under 90 seconds, without a sound, without a struggle, without anyone seeing a thing? On August 3, 1997, at a modest fuel stop called Riverbend Station, just off Interstate 40 outside the small town of Harlan, Tennessee, that exact terror unfolded for a little boy named Liam Caldwell. One second, he was buckled into his booster seat in the back of his mom's old station wagon, humming along to a cassette of Disney songs and clutching his favorite red fire truck toy. The next second, he was gone. No cries, no tire squeals, no witnesses pointing in any direction, just an open back door swinging gently in the summer breeze and an empty car seat with the straps still dangling. What came next was pure pandemonium. Sirens screaming in from every direction, volunteers flooding the nearby fields and riverbanks, news vans lining the shoulder of the interstate, the mother's devastated face frozen on every TV screen across East Tennessee. For weeks, Harlan breathed Liam Caldwell. Then months, then years. Thousands of tips poured in, sightings, suspicious vehicles, known offenders questioned, psychics consulted. Nothing held. The file drifted into cold case territory, one of those folders detectives quietly refuse to seal even when the world moves forward. But some truths are too heavy to stay hidden forever. More than 2 decades later, a single unexpected revelation flipped the entire story on its head and dragged a long-buried secret kicking and screaming into the light. This is the complete, unvarnished account of Liam Caldwell's disappearance, the ordinary Saturday that turned into a statewide nightmare, the massive hunt that turned up empty, the endless quiet years, and the stunning breakthrough no one saw coming. If you're pulled in by real mysteries that linger in your mind long after dark, if you want every layer peeled back from the first frantic call to the final emotional reckoning, then stick with me. Like this video right now if the puzzle has already grabbed you. Share it with anyone who gets hooked on true stories that feel ripped from reality. And subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss any part of what actually happened at that pump on August 3, 1997. Because Liam didn't just disappear, he disappeared flawlessly. And the explanation behind it is more unsettling than anyone could have guessed. Let's rewind to the start. Emily Caldwell was 29 that summer. She'd grown up in Harlan, a sleepy town of around 9,000 souls nestled in the rolling hills of eastern Tennessee, where most folks could trace their roots back 3 or 4 generations. Harlan sat about 45 minutes west of Knoxville, wrapped in hardwood forests and cornfields, with I-40 slicing right through like a concrete river. Main Street had the essentials: a family-owned pharmacy, a barbecue joint called Smoky's, the brick courthouse, and a couple of mom-and-pop stores. Most people worked at the lumber mill on the edge of town, the small auto parts factory, or along the highway in service jobs. Emily had married at 23 to Ryan Caldwell, a lineman for the local electric co-op. Ryan was dependable, soft-spoken, skilled with tools. They met in high school, stuck together through trade school, and tied the knot soon after Emily got her certification as a medical assistant. They rented a cozy 3-bedroom ranch on Tyne Ridge Road, a neighborhood of older homes with big yards and chain-link fences. The backyard had a tire swing Ryan hung from an oak tree and a sandbox Emily built for Liam. Liam arrived on May 18, 1993. He came right on time, healthy and loud, with sandy blonde hair that stuck up in every direction and wide blue eyes that seemed to take in everything. Emily left her clinic job to stay home full-time. Ryan pulled long shifts but was always home for supper. Money was tight but steady.
Weekends meant grilled burgers, library story time, or drives to the nearby creek to skip rocks. Liam was obsessed with emergency vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, police cars. His prized possession was a bright red plastic fire truck that lit up and made siren noises when you pressed a button. By August 1997, Liam was 4 years and 3 months. He was chatty, bold, the kind of kid who waved at every passing trucker. He still took short naps, but fought bedtime like it was a personal insult. Emily called him her little spark plug with attitude. Summer photos show him in shorts and striped t-shirts, barefoot on the lawn, covered in dirt from digging for worms, or grinning with ice cream smeared on his cheeks. That Saturday, August 3rd, the heat climbed into the low 90s by early afternoon. Emily had been out running errands, bank, grocery pickup, a quick stop at the post office for stamps. Liam had been cranky since lunch, overheated and overtired, refusing his nap. Emily decided to swing by Riverbend Station for gas and grab him a cold drink to lift his mood. They pulled in at 2:48 p.m. The station was one of the bigger ones on that stretch of I-40. 6 pumps, an attached mini-mart with coolers, 2 air pumps, and a row of payphones by the ice freezer. Locals stopped there daily. Travelers used it as a restroom break. Emily parked at Pump 4, the one nearest the store doors. She killed the engine, glanced back at Liam. "Mommy's getting gas and a surprise. Want a blue slushie? With gummy worms on top? Maybe a few," she smiled. "2 minutes, okay?" She didn't lock the doors. In 1997, at a busy interstate stop in daylight, most folks didn't for a quick in and out, especially with the kid right there. She left the windows down a crack for airflow. She walked the short distance to the entrance, grabbed a large blue raspberry slushie from the machine, and a bottled water for herself. At the register, she paid cash, exact change from her purse. The clerk, a college kid named Josh Harlan, no relation to the town, said the whole thing took under a minute.
Timestamp on the receipt, 2:50 p.m. Emily stepped back outside at roughly 2:51. The rear passenger door on the driver's side was ajar about a foot. She stopped cold, then bolted to the car. "Liam?" The booster seat was empty. The straps hung loose. His fire truck toy sat abandoned on the floorboard. The slushie slipped from her hand, exploding blue across the pavement. She screamed his name, once, twice, spinning in circles, scanning the pumps, the lot, the highway. No one running, no car peeling out. Everything looked normal. A trucker fueling at Pump 3, a woman wiping down her windshield at Pump 5, an RV idling at the diesel lane. Emily dashed back into the store. "My son's gone! Someone took my son! Call 911!" Josh grabbed the phone and dialed at 2:52 p.m. Harlan police got the call at 2:53. Dispatcher Linda Moore classified it as a possible child abduction. 2 units rolled immediately. Officer Dale Whitaker, 3 miles out, and Lieutenant Carla Evans. Officer Whitaker arrived at 2:58, found Emily frantic beside the open door, repeating, "He was right here! He was right here!" He secured the area, had Josh lock the doors to keep people in, and called for backup. Lieutenant Evans pulled up at 3:02, took charge, blocked the exits with cruisers, kept everyone on site, and started witness statements. She spoke to Emily first, trying to steady her. "Tell me exactly what happened, step by step." Emily walked through it, the stop for gas, going in, buying the drinks, coming out to the open door. She guessed she was inside less than 90 seconds. She described Liam's outfit: green dinosaur t-shirt, blue shorts, Velcro sneakers, hair messy from the car ride. Evans asked about suspicious people. Emily said no, she hadn't noticed anyone near the car. Then Evans talked to Josh. He recalled Emily coming in, paying, leaving. He'd been busy wiping down the counter, hadn't glanced outside. 2 other customers stayed, the trucker at Pump 3, a long-haul driver named Ray Mitchell, and the woman at Pump 5, local teacher Karen Ellis. Ray said he saw Emily go inside, but nothing odd at her car. Karen thought she heard a vehicle door close nearby, but dismissed it. A fast sweep of the area, woods behind the station, ditch along the interstate, restrooms, turned up nothing. By 3:30 p.m., Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, TBI, was alerted. Volunteers and deputies started arriving for grid searches. The station had one grainy outdoor camera over the entrance aimed at the pumps. Lieutenant Evans pulled the VHS tape at 3:45 p.m. They played it on the owner's small TV VCR setup inside. Footage showed Emily's wagon pulling in at 2:48, Emily going inside. Then, at around 2:50:05, a person approached the rear door. Dark baseball cap pulled low, long-sleeved shirt despite the heat, jeans, gloves, face completely shadowed. The figure opened the door, reached in, unbuckled Liam in one smooth motion, lifted him out, cradling him close, like carrying a sleeping toddler. Liam's head lolled against the shoulder, arms limp, no fight visible. The whole thing took 9 seconds. The figure walked quickly out of frame toward the rear service lane behind the building where the camera didn't reach. No clear shot of any getaway vehicle. The back lot was a known blind spot. The owner only had the front camera for drive-offs. By 4:15 p.m. on that sweltering August afternoon, Riverbend Station looked like a crime scene from a movie. Yellow tape wrapped the entire property. Portable floodlights were already being set up, even though the sun was still high. A white canopy tent went over Emily's station wagon to protect whatever evidence might be left on the paint, the door handles, the booster seat straps, even the little red fire truck toy that Liam had dropped. Crime scene techs in gloves went over every inch. They lifted partial prints from the rear door handle, but most were smudged or belonged to Emily and Ryan. A few faint ones on the exterior seemed wiped clean, as if someone had worn gloves. No blood, no fibers that screamed foul play at first glance, just the eerie absence of a fight. The VHS tape quickly became the heart of the investigation. TBI Special Agent Nathan Brooks arrived around 5 p.m. and watched the grainy footage over and over on the store's tiny TV. The figure in the cap was estimated at 5'9" to 6'1", medium build, moving with purpose but not panic. Long sleeves in 90-degree heat, gloves, jeans, no logos visible, no skin showing. The way he lifted Liam was gentle, almost practiced. Both arms under the child, cradling him against the chest like someone used to handling a sleepy toddler. Liam didn't appear to struggle. His head rested on the shoulder, body slack. Some agents whispered he might have been drowsy from the heat or even lightly sedated, though toxicology would never confirm anything without the boy. The figure carried him briskly toward the back of the station, vanishing where the camera's view cut off at the edge of the building. Behind the store ran a narrow gravel service road that looped around to a quiet county road, then melted into thick woods and eventually reconnected with I-40 a few miles west. No second camera covered that blind spot. The owner shrugged when asked. He'd only installed the front one after a string of gas-and-go thefts the year before. A bloodhound named Rusty, brought in by the county canine unit at 6:30 p.m., caught Liam's scent right away from the booster seat and the fire truck toy. Rusty tracked straight back along the path in the footage, nose low, for about 70 yards, then stopped cold at the gravel edge of the service road. The trail ended there. Agents figured that's where Liam was loaded into a waiting vehicle. Tire tracks were photographed and cast, but a sudden evening thunderstorm rolled through around 8 p.m., washing away anything subtle before forensic teams could get deeper readings. The first press conference happened at 10:30 p.m. outside the Harlan Police Department. Chief Raymond Holt faced a wall of cameras and microphones, with Emily and Ryan standing beside him.
Emily clutched a recent photo of Liam, smiling in his dinosaur shirt, blue eyes bright. Ryan kept a steady arm around her, but stayed silent, jaw tight. Chief Holt read from a typed sheet. At approximately 2:51 p.m. today, 4-year-old Liam Caldwell was abducted from his mother's vehicle at Riverbend Station on Interstate 40. The suspect is described as wearing a dark baseball cap, long sleeves, gloves, and jeans. We are treating this as a non-family abduction and urgently need the public's help. If you were at the station between 2:30 and 3:15 p.m., please contact us. A $15,000 reward was announced the next morning, put up by the Caldwell family, local businesses, and an anonymous donor from the lumber mill. By the end of the week, it climbed to $30,000. The tip line rang off the hook before midnight, over 160 calls that first night. Most were sincere but useless. I saw a gray pickup speeding away. There was a guy in a hoodie acting nervous. I swear I saw the boy at a truck stop 2 counties over. Every lead got logged, every one chased. One semi-driver who'd been at the diesel pump remembered a dark-colored SUV, maybe a Ford Explorer, parked nose in at the back of the station around 2:45 to 2:55. Tinted windows, Tennessee plates, driver appeared male, white, wearing a cap. He said the SUV left right around the time Emily started screaming, heading west on the service road. No plate number, but it stuck out because most people didn't park back there unless they were using the restroom or avoiding the pumps. Another witness, a teenage boy buying chips inside, told police he heard a soft child's voice say, "Mommy," just seconds before Emily burst in screaming. He glanced toward the door but saw nothing unusual. An anonymous caller at 3:12 a.m. on August 4th said, "Look at the old logging trails off County Road 109. That's where stuff like this ends up." Teams searched at first light. Nothing. Emily and Ryan were interviewed for a combined 16 hours over the first 4 days, standard in stranger abductions, rule out family first. They both submitted to polygraphs on August 6th and passed. Emily cried through most of her sessions, especially when reliving the 90 seconds inside the store. Ryan stayed quiet, but admitted they'd had a small argument the night before about overtime pay and bills. Nothing heated, just tired parents' stress. By August 8th, investigators cleared them. The town rallied hard. By Sunday, August 4th, over 1,000 volunteers signed up at the high school gym, now the search headquarters. Churches held candlelight prayers. The local country station played Liam's favorite Disney song, Hakuna Matata, every hour on the hour. Flyers with Liam's photo went up on every pole, every store window, every gas pump from Harlan to Knoxville.
Search teams walked grids through the woods, along creeks, around old barns and abandoned trailers. Divers swept 2 nearby rivers. Cadaver dogs came in on August 10th. No hits. National media jumped in fast. By August 7th, CNN, Dateline, NBC, and 2020 had crews in town. Dateline ran a piece called Gone in 90 Seconds on August 18th. America's Most Wanted featured Liam on September 14th, 1997, pulling in over 400 fresh tips, none solid. FBI artists enhanced stills from the VHS and released a composite sketch. White male, 30s to 40s, average features under the cap. It became the iconic image of the case, plastered everywhere, even though no one ever matched it perfectly. Over the next 8 months, investigators chased more than 2,800 leads. A man in Georgia arrested for a failed carjacking with a similar SUV, cleared by DNA and alibi. A psychic insisted Liam was in a cabin in the Smoky Mountains, searched, empty. A level 3 sex offender living 15 miles away was grilled for 10 hours. No alibi for the afternoon, but no physical link, and he passed a polygraph. Sightings poured in. A boy matching Liam at fairs, malls, rest areas from Alabama to Ohio. Every tip followed. Every one dead-ended.
By spring 1998, the searches tapered off, the volunteer center shut down. The reward plateaued at $60,000. Active investigation continued, but the daily grind slowed. Agent Brooks and his team kept the binders open, reviewing every anniversary, re-interviewing key witnesses, watching for new offenders in the area. Harlan never forgot. Every August 3rd, starting in 1998, a candlelight vigil lit up the Riverbend station lot, now quietly called Liam's Corner by locals. Emily and Ryan went to every one until Ryan's passing from cancer in 2007. Emily kept going alone, leaving fresh flowers in a small toy fire truck at Pump 4 each year. The file eventually filled 4 thick binders. The VHS was digitized in 2004. Age progression images of what Liam might look like at 18, then 25, were released in 2011 and 2018. No arrests, no body, no ransom, no confession. The case stayed open but quiet until November 12, 2019. That Tuesday morning at 11:03 a.m., the Harlan Police Department received a call patched through from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The caller was a 26-year-old man who identified himself as Caleb Monroe, calling from Chattanooga, Tennessee, about 3 hours southwest. His voice was calm, but shaking slightly. "I think I'm Liam Caldwell. I just did a DNA test, and it doesn't match the people who raised me." After 22 years, 3 months, and 9 days, the coldest of cases suddenly cracked wide open.
November 12, 2019. A chilly Tuesday morning in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Caleb Monroe was 26 years old. He worked as a warehouse supervisor at a distribution center on the outskirts of town, lived in a small duplex with his girlfriend Mia, drove a beat-up 2008 Toyota pickup, and had been saving quietly for a ring. On the surface, his life was steady. Predictable shifts, weekend hikes in the mountains, Sunday dinners with the people he called Mom and Dad. But for the last 2 years, a quiet unease had been growing inside him. It started with little things: family photos on the mantel, his supposed parents, Greg and Diane Monroe, both with straight dark hair and brown eyes. Caleb had sandy blonde hair that never quite lay flat and bright blue eyes that looked out of place next to theirs. He'd asked about it once as a teenager. Diane smiled and said, "You got your grandpa's coloring on my side. Genes skip generations sometimes." It was enough for a kid. It wasn't enough anymore. By 2018, the questions had teeth. No one in the extended Monroe family had his freckles across the nose. No one shared the slight cleft in his chin. At holiday gatherings, he started feeling like the puzzle piece that didn't fit. He avoided group photos. He caught himself staring too long in mirrors, tracing features that didn't match the stories he'd grown up hearing. Then, one sleepless night in February 2019, scrolling through late-night TV, he saw an ad. A smiling family holding up DNA test kits. Discover where you really come from. Find relatives you never knew. He'd seen the commercials before and rolled his eyes. This time, he paused. 2 weeks later, a 23andMe kit arrived in the mail. He swabbed his cheek, sealed the tube, sent it back. The wait felt endless. Results dropped online on April 3, 2019. Ethnicity estimate first: 48% British and Irish, 22% Scandinavian, 15% French and German, bits of Eastern European and Northwestern European. Interesting, but not earth-shattering. The Monroes had always claimed mixed Southern roots. Then he opened the DNA Relatives tab. Top match, a first cousin. Name, Hannah Caldwell, 31, living in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Shared DNA, 938 centimorgans. Label, very high confidence, close family. Caleb had never heard the name Caldwell. Below that, second cousins with surnames he didn't recognize, Caldwell, Whitaker, Evans. One profile linked to a public family tree. He clicked. The tree branched back. At the second generation up from Hannah, a branch labeled Liam Caldwell, born May 18, 1993. Next to the name, in small red text added by the tree owner, missing since August 3, 1997, age 4. Caleb's heart slammed against his ribs. He sat motionless for 20 minutes, screen glowing in the dark room.
He searched Google, Liam Caldwell, missing, Tennessee. The top result was a 2017 article from the Knoxville News-Sentinel. 20 years later, the unsolved abduction of Liam Caldwell. There was a photo, a 4-year-old boy in a green dinosaur shirt, sandy blonde hair, blue eyes, wide grin showing a missing front tooth. The same grin Caleb saw when he smiled, the same eyes, the same freckle pattern across the bridge of his nose. He read everything he could find, archived news clips from 1997, the Interstate gas station, the 90-second window, the figure in the baseball cap on the blurry tape, the empty booster seat, the toy fire truck left behind. By 3 a.m., he was shaking. He didn't sleep. The next 7 months were a private collapse. He told no one, not Mia, not his parents, not his younger brother who looked exactly like Diane. He kept refreshing the DNA matches, digging through every public tree connected to Caldwell. He found age progression photos released in 2015 and 2018, a teenage Liam at 18, then a young man at 25. The jawline, the eye shape, the way the hair fell. It was like looking at pictures of himself with different lighting. He gathered proof in secret. Childhood photos side by side with Liam's. Height records from school showing he'd been held back a year in kindergarten. He was small, his mom always said. Medical files with no matching newborn vaccinations for Tennessee in 1993. Every mismatch felt like a shout. The love made it unbearable. Greg and Diane Monroe had raised him with everything they had. Greg taught him to change oil, throw a football, fix a leaky faucet. Diane packed his lunches every day through high school, sat up with him when he had pneumonia at 12, cried happy tears at his high school graduation. They'd never once hinted at anything other than being his biological parents. They showed him a birth certificate from a small clinic in South Carolina. They told the same birth story every year. Early arrival, tiny but strong, first cry loud enough to wake the neighbors. If he was right, these people who'd given him a childhood full of love had stolen him. They'd built their family on a crime. The thought made him vomit in the bathroom more than once. He considered silence, bury the results, stay Caleb Monroe, pretend the match was a glitch. But the resemblance wasn't fading. The age-progressed images looked more like him every time he checked. The guilt from both directions was crushing. Accuse innocent parents of the unthinkable, or let a grieving mother live the rest of her life believing her son was dead. On November 11, 2019, he sat on the couch with his laptop open to the NCMEC website. He read stories of recovered children. He cried until his throat hurt. The next morning, he called in sick to work. At 10:58 a.m., he dialed the NCMEC tip line. His voice cracked on the first sentence. "My name is Caleb Monroe. I live in Chattanooga.
I took a consumer DNA test this year, and I match as a close relative to the Caldwell family, to Liam Caldwell, the boy who disappeared from the gas station in 1997. Silence on the other end, then gentle questions, birth date, description, earliest memories. Caleb had no memories before age 4. His first clear one was playing trucks in the driveway of their old house in Murfreesboro. They asked if he'd contacted police. He said no. They transferred him to the Harlan Police Cold Case Desk. Detective Sergeant Travis Reed picked up at 11:03 a.m. Caleb repeated it all. While still on the call, he emailed recent photos, childhood pictures, screenshots of the 23andMe results. Reed listened quietly. Then, "Stay home. Don't talk to anyone yet. We're sending people to you today." By 2:30 p.m., 2 TBI agents arrived at Caleb's duplex. They took a formal statement, did a new buccal swab for official testing, took more photos, and asked him to avoid contact with his parents or any social media posts. That night, alone in the apartment, while Mia was at her night class, Caleb stared at the ceiling. He thought about Diane still texting him recipes every week. He thought about Emily Caldwell, the woman whose face he'd now studied in grainy news footage for months. He thought about the baseball cap figure on the video he'd watched obsessively online. He whispered into the dark, "I'm sorry." But under the fear and guilt, something else flickered, small, fragile, terrifying. Relief. For the first time in years, the questions had a shape, even if the answer broke everything. The next morning, November 13th, the official DNA comparison was rushed through the state lab. 22 years, 3 months, and 10 days after Liam Caldwell vanished on Pump 4, the results landed. Probability of maternity, Emily Caldwell to Caleb Monroe, 99.9998%. He was a match. The confirmation lit a fuse that had been waiting since 1997. Detectives moved fast and quiet. Caleb, now officially identified as Liam Caldwell, was placed in protective custody in a safe house outside Knoxville. He was interviewed daily for a week, piecing together every fragment of memory from his life with the Monroes. No recall of the abduction. His earliest memories started around age 4, playing in a sandbox in Murfreesboro, Greg teaching him to ride a bike without training wheels, Diane reading him bedtime stories about firefighters. The spotlight turned to Greg and Diane Monroe. Greg, 59, was a retired forklift operator. Diane, 57, worked part-time at a library. They still lived in the same modest house in Murfreesboro they'd bought in late 1997, just months after the disappearance. Investigators pulled records. Birth certificate from South Carolina listing Greg and Diane as parents, issued at a small clinic that closed in 2003 after unrelated licensing issues. No surviving delivery logs, no nurses who remembered the birth. Bank statements showed a $16,500 cash withdrawal on August 8, 1997, 5 days after Liam vanished. The Monroes said it was for closing costs on the Murfreesboro house, but deed records showed the purchase closed September 2nd with a full mortgage, no cash down payment noted. Old phone records, dug up from archived carrier data, showed a 38-second call from the Monroe's landline to a payphone 2 miles from Riverbend Station on August 2, 1997, the day before. The real break came from the VHS figure. In 2019, the TBI ran updated enhancement and facial recognition software on the clearest stills, comparing against 1990s driver's license photos. A partial hit. Greg Monroe, age 37 in 1997, height 5'10", build matched, posture, the way the gloves sat on the hands. On November 20th, 2019, at 5:30 a.m., search warrants hit the Monroe home and Greg's old storage unit. In a locked metal box under the workbench, a sealed plastic bag containing a small green dinosaur t-shirt, size 4T. Fibers matched samples from Liam's booster seat. A red plastic fire truck toy, identical model to the one left behind. Newspaper clippings of the case from 1997 to 2010. A folded note in Greg's handwriting, dated August 4, 1997. He's safe now. We'll give him a good life. No one has to know. Greg was arrested at home, Diane at her library shift, both charged with first-degree kidnapping, conspiracy to kidnap, and aggravated child abuse for the decades-long deception. Greg confessed within 36 hours. In a taped interview on November 22nd, he broke. They'd struggled with infertility for years. In mid-1997, through a discreet classified ad in a regional paper, they found an underground adoption facilitator who promised quick private placements for cash, no paperwork, no questions.
Greg drove to Riverbend that day. Baseball cap, gloves, long sleeves to hide skin. He took Liam while Emily was inside, carried him to a borrowed SUV parked in the blind spot, drove straight to a motel in Murfreesboro where Diane waited. They moved into their new house a month later, used the facilitator's contacts to forge the birth certificate, and raised him as their own. Greg sobbed through the confession. "We never meant to hurt anyone. We just wanted to be parents. We loved him more than anything." Diane stayed silent at first, then claimed she only learned the full truth after the fact. Evidence, phone call, withdrawal, the note, proved otherwise. She was charged as an accomplice. The story broke nationwide on November 23rd. Media swarmed Murfreesboro and Harlan. Emily Caldwell, now 51, was told in person by Detective Reed. She stared at Caleb's recent photo for a long minute, then whispered, "That's him. That's my Liam." The news exploded across Tennessee and beyond on November 23, 2019. Headlines screamed, "Boy missing 22 years found alive through DNA test." National outlets, CNN, Good Morning America, Dateline, descended on Harlan and Murfreesboro. The Riverbend station parking lot filled with reporters and cameras for the first time in decades. Pump 4, the spot where it all began, became a makeshift memorial again, this time with candles, teddy bears, and handwritten signs reading, "Welcome home, Liam." Emily Caldwell, now 51 and still living in the same house on Pine Ridge Road, was notified in person that morning by Detective Reed and an FBI victim specialist. They sat her down in her living room, showed her a recent photo of Caleb, now Liam, standing in a park, smiling softly. Emily stared at the screen for what felt like forever. Her hands trembled. Then she touched the photo, as if she could reach through it. "That's my boy," she whispered. "That's Liam. He still has Ryan's smile." The trial began in April 2020 in Rutherford County Superior Court. Greg Monroe pleaded guilty early to first-degree kidnapping and conspiracy to avoid a possible death sentence or life without parole. In open court, he read a short statement through tears. "I destroyed 2 families to build one. There's no excuse. I'm sorry to Emily, to Ryan's memory, to everyone. Liam deserved the truth, and we took it from him." Diane went to trial in June 2020, insisting she was unaware of the abduction until Greg brought the child home. Prosecutors presented the phone records, the cash withdrawal, the note in Greg's handwriting, and witness testimony from the underground facilitator's former associates, tracked down after Greg named him.
The jury convicted her on all counts after 3 days of deliberation. Greg received life without parole. Diane was sentenced to 40 years, eligible for parole after 32.
The community's reaction was a mix of rage and relief. Vigils turned into gatherings of celebration. The old Liam's Corner sign at Riverbend Station was officially updated with a small bronze plaque, "In memory of Liam Caldwell, found alive, 2019." Billboards along I-40 that had carried his age-progressed photo for years were replaced with simple messages, "He's home." On August 3, 2020, exactly 23 years to the day after the disappearance, Liam Caldwell, who legally reclaimed his birth name but still went by Caleb in private moments, met Emily for the first time as an adult. The reunion happened at Emily's house, away from cameras. Only close family, a few friends, and a counselor were there. Emily waited on the front porch, holding the same red fire truck toy she'd kept preserved in a box all those years. Battery long dead, but the siren button still clicked. When Liam stepped out of the TBI vehicle, she froze for a heartbeat. Then she ran down the steps. They met in the middle of the yard and held each other for a long time, silent at first, then both crying. Emily touched his face, his hair, his hands, tracing the years she'd missed. "I never stopped hoping," she said, voice breaking. "Not one single day." Liam, still adjusting to the name, still grieving the only parents he'd ever known, managed, "I'm here now. I'm home." They spent the afternoon in the backyard under the old oak tree. Emily showed him photo albums, home videos on an old VCR, the tire swing Ryan had hung, now weathered but sturdy. Liam shared stories from his life with the Monroes, the good ones, learning to fish with Greg, baking cookies with Diane, the way his little brother looked up to him. Emily listened without anger, without judgment. She understood the tangle of love and betrayal he carried. In the months and years that followed, they rebuilt slowly. Therapy for both, individual and joint sessions. Liam visited Harlan often, learned about his biological father, Ryan, through stories and old letters, met aunts, uncles, cousins who'd grown up wondering about him. He stayed in touch with the younger brother from the Monroe family, who was heartbroken but fiercely supportive. The boy Liam had called his sibling visited once in 2021, a tearful, awkward afternoon that ended in hugs and promises to keep talking. Liam never fully blamed Diane and Greg. He visited them separately in prison over the years, short, supervised meetings where he listened more than spoke. Forgiveness wasn't easy, but understanding crept in. He told one interviewer later, "I stole me, but they also raised me with love. Both things are true. I'm still figuring out how to live with that." Emily remained in Harlan, eventually becoming a quiet advocate for missing children. She helped organize annual awareness events and pushed for better access to DNA databases for cold cases. Liam himself spoke at conferences, worked with NCMEC, and quietly funded reward programs for other unsolved abductions. He married Mia in 2022 in a small ceremony. Emily walked him down the aisle. They have a daughter now, born in 2024. Emily is Nana M to her, and the little girl has sandy blonde curls and blue eyes that light up just like her grandfather's used to. The case of Liam Caldwell is remembered as one of the rare miracles in missing children history, not because a body was found, but because a living son came home after more than 2 decades, thanks to nothing more dramatic than a mail-in DNA kit and the courage to face the truth. Some secrets stay buried, but some, when the moment is right, rise up, painful, shattering, and in the end, redemptive. Thank you for staying with me through the full story of the vanishing at Station 4. If this one touched you, if it reminded you how fragile life can be and how powerful truth is,
Please like the video, share it with someone who loves a real mystery with heart, and subscribe if you want more deep dives into cases that change everything. Your support keeps these stories going. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and hold your loved ones a little closer tonight.